Hello, everybody. You are listening to Sight and Sound, a living atlas. This is my new project. My name is Kylie Stokes. I'm an applied anthropologist, and I'm treating this project just like an applied anthropology project, designing based off of the tenets that I would explore as an anthropologist. I'm hosting conversations. I'm doing field work. I'm doing field notes. I'm exploring all these different layers to this question of how do people experience place through sound and memory and the senses. And the project is designed to be a living atlas. So the concept is to map what I'm calling invisible cities, which are made up of narratives of people and how they perceive the world around them, how they experience place. And yeah, so that is the project. My first guest is Alexey Seliverstov. He is a Moscow-born LA resident. He is an experimental artist. He does a lot of sound design, sound work. Just did some really big sound installations. He just had a BBC documentary podcast come out about him this last week about his process creating sound installation for Harvard in collaboration with Chalamet Sound Lab. And we speak about it. We speak about place as collaborator. We speak about his artistic philosophy, his principles that he holds to as a field recordist, what that really means, what it means to work with place as a collaborator. And so I'm very excited to share it with you. I hope you enjoy the conversation. I really recommend to anyone who hasn't already heard the BBC documentary podcast, please listen. It is linked in the Substack um, little write up. And yeah, let me know if you have questions, if you have feedback. I would love to hear. But this is a wonderful conversation. I also recommend look up Alexey's work. I have his website linked on the show notes as well. Um, and I think that's it. So please enjoy. I'll see you at the end. Thank you, Alexey, for being here. I'm so honored to get to meet you and talk to you about your experience. I would love to learn a little bit about your time in Moscow. Specifically, I want to ask you if there's any sounds that remind you of Moscow or sounds that you found when you were there that you haven't found anywhere else in your travels.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kylie. I thank you for having me. I'm pretty excited about this interview, first of all. And it's a great question because I think I've never had any deep connections with the city I grew up and the city I was born because I don't like Moscow as a place to live and a place to exist. But, regarding the sounds, I remember the sound of a huge parkway that was located near my apartment complex. I grew up with my brother. We used to live at 10th floor, and during first days of spring, it was like end of March, and we opened the windows and I heard this distant parkway, which is like a huge avenue, and I also heard these reflections because this neighborhood was full of tall apartments, buildings, really like 17th floor buildings, and I heard this reverberation, delays, and really complicated reflection, and this was such a magical moment for me, for my childhood when I was a teenager. It was so beautiful to me, but this is maybe only one sound I really loved about the city I grew up.
That's so interesting. I think sound plays a big role in how we remember a place. So I really appreciate that perspective. So around what year did you move to California?
3 years ago, and it was September 2022.
And what can you tell me about what it's been like for you since moving there?
Uh, I had traveled to California several times before I moved here, and especially to Los Angeles. And this is pretty inspiring to me regarding everything. I would say, first of all, it's a different vibrations, I would say, of the city or the environment. What I really love about Los Angeles, to me, this is something like a sound collage, because it includes the soundscape of LA, includes different things like freeways, sounds of birds, especially in May, sounds of coyotes if you go up to the hills, or sounds of the ocean if you go to Malibu, for example, or Santa Monica. And this is all very complex and all very inspiring to me. Gives me this huge sort of inspiration to create because, for example, I grew up in Moscow and used to live in Berlin and in Poland as well. And these places were all real cities, and what I really love about Los Angeles, it's like half city and half wild nature. And I look at the city like at the organism. It's a different organism to the places I have lived before. It's really, really inspiring in terms of sound, yeah.
That's really true. I think thinking of cities as living organisms makes a lot of sense. I would love to know a little bit more about what the first place or sound was that made you want to start documenting.
My first real first recordings were made here in Los Angeles in 2019. I create music for the whole of my life, but I started look at this side of field recording. I started thinking of it like 6 years ago because I was really inspired by different things. Because I always wanted to make recordings of the soundscapes, and I composed music a lot. I work with modular synthesizers a lot, and here I just decided to buy a small Shure mic for an iPhone. This is like a small mic that just connects to your cell phone and you're able to press the button and go recording. And I remember how my wife and we stayed here in LA for a week in May, and I just had this mic, and I had a jet lag, and I couldn't sleep because having jet lag here, it's really hard to do. I went to get some fresh air to breathe at 4 a.m., 4 5 a.m., and we stayed right next to the Hollywood Hills. And I remember that was like nothing, empty streets, no cars, no planes, no nothing, just absolutely silent. And that was a bird here. That was a bird that I have never heard before, because the song of that bird consists of different tweets, but yeah, each next tweet was unique, absolutely. It was like a random machine or something, like a synthesizer or like it. And as I realized, it was a mockingbird. What's really exciting about this mockingbird doesn't have a particular song. It doesn't have its own song at all. And each individual bird, each individual creature learns all the sound through its own life, and it could be sounds of other birds. It could be sounds of industrial sounds. It could be sounds of cars, for example. It could be sounds of like your cell phone. It's really exciting about it because this is something that exists in our planet. And I recorded that bird, and it was like 3 minute piece, and that was pretty amazing because from this bird I created my first generative stuff, and I
Hmm.
started exploring it. It was my first really seriously made field recording, and it's pretty exciting to me. And it's really coincidentally, but interestingly, it happened here in late to me.
That is so fascinating. I love that you started with your phone. I think that's how a lot of field recordists start, just getting a little attachment microphone and going from there. And I love that it was a bird. That was your first, like, oh, I want to record this.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I realized because when you leave, you hear a lot of sounds. Like, for example, now I try to analyze everything that happens around me. But when you dive deep into field recording, you try to, like, I would say there's some sort of threshold of the soundscape, and that you always think, will I record this or I will not? So because some city sounds, for example, I wouldn't say I like them so much. I like them to explore, for example, when you walk somewhere or you like drive, it's a different experience. But in terms of recording and playing it in some ways, to me, it's maybe too noisy or too, I simply don't like how it sounds on recordings because I love nature and like love explore this way, and I mean, the field recording changes. I would say it changed my life really in a dramatic way.
That makes sense. I feel like even when I listened to the BBC documentary, I could sense the excitement in your voice about being out there. And I will say, I just tried field recording for the first time recently. And it was the first time I've gotten a mic and sort of my own little kit. And I am so obsessed with it now because as soon as I put my headphones on and I could hear the whole environment, that moment changed my life too. And it's so fresh. So I recognize that in your voice. And that's very exciting to be able to have that
Yeah,
connection.
yeah, I really happy to hear this because it changes changes your perspective, your point of view. I don't know, it's a really like a cool topic, but and what's interesting, and I would really recommend to you or to uh anyone, try different microphones. Actually, try different things, like, because everything changed to me, like, again when I got my parabolic mic, which is Wildtronics Pro Mono Stereo parabolic mic. And I would really recommend to use it because, interestingly, before I bought it, I texted some people who were deep into field recordings and I asked, what do you think? Can I use stereo parabolic mic? Because all of them are usually mono, people, I mean, like professional field recordists using mono mics. And I asked about that thing, and I didn't get any really perfect answer because nobody know about how the whole picture of it. And I decided to just order the mic, and I was like, it was so fascinating, to me, because it sounds totally different. And I'm really happy that I grabbed this stereo thing because it's also a different topic of mixing the sounds, but I like having stereo. Yeah, the sounds as you hear them, because we hear stereo, and I don't like mono actually. And it changes because it gains the sound in a very dramatic way, in a very, like, it's very exciting because even there was a small piece of paper, which is what, like a manual for this mic, where there was some description and some note that it could be used for law enforcement. Just
Mm.
I thought, wow, when I tried, you can really hear the conversations of people, which is crazy, of course. And maybe it's not about like privacy. I don't like to do so and never try it in a real way, but it was a big fun, actually. But on the other hand, with this mic, you have to be very cautious because of the sounds. For example, because we hear the soundscape, and like it could be fine, it looks fine, and could be recorded on any mic in a really good way. But when you just started working with parabolic, it's you begin hearing this craziness of noises or distant cars that are miles away, or some planes, or some, like, any other sounds of the city. But I really recommend it because it will change your life again, I would say. I would recommend to anyone to try the parabolic mics. I mean, any of them are, I think, are great, but the stereo one is something special.
That sounds so fun. I'm gonna have to try that out if I can get my hands on one. I'm curious, what can you tell me about what it's like for you when you're in the field and you're actually recording? Like, can you walk me through what you're listening for, maybe what you're noticing? And Yeah, just like how that process is like for you.
The process, I would say, when I started working with field recording, as I've already said, it changed your like point of view as an artist. But the thing is, nowadays I always try to analyze first of all before I check something. And specifically, I love birds. And I love birds, or I love sounds of nature, and I try to analyze. Then I test in different gains on my parabolic mic, and sometimes it happens really spontaneous because I know that there is a rule to me during late spring and early summer. I always grab my parabolic mic with me when I drive somewhere. It's really important because you never know what sounds you will hear. This is something really, you can't predict this. And for example, it's really interesting because you can go to the fields and and just and thought that, okay, I know this place. I know this place that was full of birds last year, and you come here with all of your gear, and when you're here, like nothing, just the birds, just you have a few birds here. Sometimes it happens, like, because it's really hard to plan, and this is the rule. When you go to the nature, it's better to have your gear. And this is also a different topic, but it's a problem of parabolic mic because it's a giant one. And I don't like pocket field recorders. I have, but I don't use because the difference, for example, I have like a small Sony field recorder, which is great. But when you try to make in birds recordings, it's like it's a bummer actually. In
Mm,
terms of like, it's really like it's nothing to compare with parabolic one. Yeah, I hope I answered, because sorry for this like a long answer. Yeah.
that's okay. That's great. Yeah, I think fields recording is in its own world in a way. And I asked that question because I want to understand what it is that happens for you. And I know we kind of talked about it a little bit, but that excitement and sort of like it feels like you're working with the environment to create something. So the place that you go to is sort of alive and you're sort of finding ways to navigate through it. Does that feel true to you?
Yeah. And by the way, I would say that places are our collaborators, and they play this huge role, because when you record something in the fields, in the forests, it records much deeper than just into your brain. Oh, sorry, just into your flash card, because it records inside you, just somewhere into your brain. You have this memory, and when you play the sound, either file or a tape, because sometimes I use tape for recording, and you always imagine, you always remember, you keep that feeling you had at the moment when you recorded it, and you have a lot of visuals because this place appeared in your head again. And this is pretty exciting because when I compose something over, like, because I use field recording as a tool, I would say. This is one of the things I work with, and I combine them with other instruments. And when I do so, I think that it inspires you, because the recording, when you have done this, you have that feeling, you have that contribution of the place that gave you this, and you go to your studio, and when you working with this and compose, this is like a basement of what you're doing, because it's much deeper, much deeper, and emotionally, of course, because it could have associations with your like state of mind you had at this moment. It's really deep to me, and really, and this is why the most of the time I use my own field recordings, like in 99%. uh, Only if I do some collaborations, I can use some rare examples or some rare libraries. that people personally like give to me. I mean, just like because I have never ever used field recordings from public libraries or something like open libraries or any other sources because they won't work for me. This is the key point.
Does it feel like when you have worked with other people's recordings, like with your installation with Pete Townsend, how do you approach like working with other people's work if you mainly focus on working with your own?
It's a great question because this is only exception, only one exception I had in my career working with other field recordings of others, and in the context of what Pete gave me, it was his catalog of bird songs. He or his team, I guess, recorded somewhere, and also what is really interesting and what left behind the scenes, there was some particular recordings I brought to my installation um, that were recordings made in Happy Valley in India in 1978 by a blind nephew of Meher Baba, Avatar Meher Baba. His name was Dara Irani, and Pete Townsend set him up with portable for those days reel-to-reel recorder and mics, and Dara made some beautiful recordings of spiritual talks, because for those who don't know, Meher Baba is a spiritual teacher of Pete Townsend, and that's pretty fascinating. It's like, to me, it's too otherworldly. And I just, of course, you imagine it when you play it, but it's something really different. Like, it's something that sounds from a different planet or some, I don't know, but it's really cool. And I used that sound too, and it was really something really unexpected and for my installation, but it worked pretty well. But this is because of, like, to me it's important who gave me the sound, because we knew with Pete each other and he gifted it to me, and this is like, I used it a gift, and I asked him about even more field recordings, and I was pretty happy with this, because it's like maybe some sort of personal connection, because you know the purpose, you know how he's obsessed with field recordings as well, and this is important when you collaborate with someone to do so. But it was really only one exception.
Yeah, right. I can imagine you would want to make sure that your collaborators are aligned with sort of the narrative that you're crafting, and even the intention maybe.
Yeah, because the story with Pete, actually, because I composed the soundscape for his art installation, which is still ongoing, and the main idea was to represent. One of the main ideas was to represent sounds of nature as music, which is one of key things I try to share with this world. I try to share in my work, through my work, and because this really matches with what I'm doing, and this is really like, yeah, this really aligns with my own concepts, and this is really important to me.
I would love to ask about your collaboration with your wife. She is a filmmaker, and I know that you collaborated for your sound installation. Have you also done other installations together?
Actually, yeah, she took photos for my first solo, my own sound installation in LA in Walt Disney Concert Hall last November. We created, maybe I can show your end. Yeah,
Sure.
we created these vinyl, but it's a different story about how it was recorded. We created these pieces of vinyl for sound installation initially for LA Phil, but we used it here. I mean, we used it at Harvard as well. And this is mid-format film photos. Sorry, just you. Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. This is hard to talk and with a microphone. Yeah, and what's interesting about it, we collaborated on this concept because it should feel like a piece of something from the library, something from the sound library, rather than like an artwork or something. And we used her film photos she took here in mostly in Southern California. And it's also interesting from the backside you see all year, a place and some stuff and some information where and what it is on the vinyl. This is all about atmospheres. It's real field recordings, and we made 10 pieces of vinyl for this. And we collaborated and this is how we started collaborating on my sound installations. I also uh, write music and wrote music for her movies, and she also helps me to make shots for Instagram because I it's really hard to imagine to me the photos of others because she's a film director, but she's also a very genius visual artist. I really love like what she's able to convey, what she's able to show through your like inner mirror when she takes a photo. And here for Harvard, we created this really, really strange in a good way thing because for the installation there was a lot of different sound sources, and here that was VHS tapes. We also made it like pieces from the library, and each VHS we had seven. Each of them has something like three different field recordings. And for each field recording, we created a separate video, and Tata filmed like we tried to do it at the same places where I recorded it, and we used real VHS camera, which is really interesting. But also we add the information about the whole description. When you play the cassette, you hear the sounds from your TV, from VCR player, and you also see the whole description. I mean, what it is, and if that sound was processed or something like this. And yeah, it's really, really new way of like, because it is as a way when you can present your field recording, show the audience the exact place where it was recorded. She made really great thing for like, as a visual artist. She like depicted it, and I really love this collaboration with her.
Yeah, I loved hearing her part in the BBC documentary where she speaks about choosing VHS because of how it relates to time, how you capture time.
Yeah.
And I noticed that theme throughout the episode when you speak about sort of changing the time of the actual recordings to slowing it down and sort of creating an underworld, like what you mentioned. I'm wondering, how does that theme, or like how does time, playing with time, kind of influence your work? Are there other ways that you've played with time? I know that's kind of a hard question, but I was
That's
just
a very
curious.
complicated and very good question because yeah, and because honestly, I never thought uh, about it that way. I mean, just you slow down a bit. Actually, yeah, you play with time. But to me, it's more about playing with the soundscape because I like create this new kind of creatures, new kind of atmosphere. Yeah, and it's really great. But yeah, it's a great question because I never thought about this and never looked at this from this perspective of time. Yeah, but maybe certainly now I will think about.
Yeah, it just seemed interesting because I feel like that is maybe a connecting piece between when you create field recordings traditionally and capture it exactly as it is, and then you create this alternate world. You are altering time as it occurs. And I guess I'm just a little bit curious about how you see that world building process. How are you sort of thinking about that underworld that you're creating? Like, does it just happen organically, or do you have
That
something in
happens
mind?
fully organically, fully.
Okay.
Like, I mean, because, you know, that I would say that experimentation, the main part of the process, the huge part. And, some people just love making field recordings. Some people love show and present the sounds as they are. But in my work, I feel like it's really interesting, yeah, because it's also sorry to jump in a different place here, but a lot of people, for example, like my Instagram audience or people maybe who are new, some new followers, like they don't know what I'm doing. They look at me as field recordist, but I feel that I'm an artist more than just field recording as a tool I use. And like people ask me what kind of mic you would use for this and what kind of mic you would use for that, but I use only my parabolic mic these days in Octava ones. I'm not deep into that technical stuff and not deep into field recording in terms of commercial things, and I've never done any like production things for movies like other people do, and it's really great, and they understand this process maybe much better than I, because I'm using field recordings in my own purposes, just to create new soundscapes, to create new worlds, to extend it, to blend it with other instruments, to create music, and to show how it works as music rather than just documenting the whole soundscape as it is. Yeah, this is like, I hope I answered you, because
Yeah.
this is why I'm doing this experimentation, and because I always try to like add something to extend it. And for example, for the installation, it's a crucial part because we had such big space, like in multi-channel installation, and it was a big fun to use different recordings with different speeds and how each of them added something unique to this, and that was like a one piece coherent piece.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up. I would love to hear a little more about the installation because it was an interactive installation, which I think is brilliant. What did you notice about how people interacted with the space when you were there? And did you learn anything from that?
Yeah, I learned a lot actually. For example, maybe I would start from my previous sound installation, and maybe I will explain how that idea was born, actually how it appeared. Because when I moved to LA, like, and lived here for some time, I was texted by Mark McNeil, the DJ Frosty, who is one of the founders of Dublab Radio here in Los Angeles, and now works for LA Film. He is a creative producer, and he texted me and he said, "Alexey, I've heard from our mutual friend that you moved to LA, which is great, and let's collaborate sometime." And he texted me in like 2 months, "Would you like to create sound installation, because we have this upcoming the Midnight Festival, which will be dedicated to field recording this year. And like we will transform the whole Walt Disney Concert Hall to a place where people can explore field recording." And that was a really magical festival. It was pure magic because I met a lot of great people there, and I created an installation for one of the lobbies, because Ninja Midnight was mostly focused on performances, and they had something like 5 or 6 different installations, and created my own here. And when I went to Walt Disney Concert Hall to meet with Mark, we discussed what could it be, what might we bring to people, and how can we show, and how can we represent what I'm doing to the audience in a very interesting way, in a very different way. Because I've always performed, I've written a soundscape of Pete Townsend's sound installation. And here I I remember how I thought that it could be great to give people vinyl. What if we bring vinyl? And Mark said, yeah, that's a great idea. And then I thought it would be great to bring all of my dictaphones as they are. Then we developed this idea, and it was so, at the end, it was so amazing. It was much smaller sound installation. It wasn't multi-channel, but still it was about interacting. It was creating your own soundscapes from field recordings and artificial birds I brought here. And what I noticed, people are really, it's a really different and really mixed feeling in a good way. I mean, like, because some people just explore, some people like learned. The funny thing that some people explained their children and showed the cassette players as this one what it actually is, because their generation never seen these machines and maybe won't have them. I don't know. I think it's like it's something it's already gone. And it was the funnest thing. And what I noticed actually, that people like it and people try to do something and they create something new that I am not able to even imagine. Like, they starting creating this build small, I would say, buildings from dictaphones to be closer to the mic. And that was crazy and so interactive. And for Harvard Sound Installation, which was made closely with John Pax, who is a director of Chalamet Sound Lab, and he invited me to Harvard. And here we worked more than a year just to just discussing, firstly, creating the plan. How can we transform Holden Chapel to something like to transform it to this sound installation, and what can we bring, what mediums we can place, how can we create this space and transform how people would interact. And here we went really far, I would say, like really beyond my initial expectations, because we created some sort of it's really interactive part. Thank you, Harvard. They have really great resources to help to build it. We created some sort of a real booth, like a real, like a, if you can imagine, the vocal booth, and we just built it inside the chapel for the sound collages to isolate sounds. And it was really interesting when people just come to this booth and trying to work with dictaphones here, and then they left this booth and heard how it sounds in a big way, how it sounds like from these speakers. It was really fun thing. And also we brought different parabolic mics here, and I brought my parabolic mic and gave to people, and some of them were really surprised that it's my mic. But I like, because what I'm doing, the visual part and the interactive part, I mean, the art I'm doing is really important, because I believe that my Instagram won't leave without videos. And here the installation, if it's static, if it's like something that's just the place that makes sounds, it could be boring. I love to interact, to see people interact. I love to talk to people, and people come, people interact, people talk to me, and we have a really great conversations. And it's really, really great, and something really dynamic, something really alive.
I can only imagine how fun that was. It was really cool to see clips and sort of like people sharing about the experience that they were having there. So obviously it took, as you said, you spent over a year speaking with Harvard and sort of like collaborating to create the narrative. I would love to hear a little bit about what that process, how it kind of unfolded for you. Like, was there did you have the idea of making it sort of this living organism in mind from the start, or did it sort of develop that way? And yeah, was there any like other directive parts to that process for you?
That's interesting, because I didn't think about the installation like this is a whole organism. It's really interesting because yeah, some of the visitors said this and feel that this is something new and this is some sort of the whole piece that's life, and yeah, we worked closely with John, and he's very like really genius guy, really like he helped me a lot, and we discussed all the ideas together and the like a placing of speakers, the sounds and etc. But he gave me, of course, like full freedom here, but we like brainstormed all the things together. What's really inspiring here is, yeah, that was an idea to open the windows, to open the doors, to make it sound like a whole piece. You can just stay in the situation when you can just stay outside, if it's good, if the weather is good, of course, and listen to these from this windows. It's really interesting because we wanted to create something that will exist and will be interactive. Actually, the idea was like broad parabolic mics was mostly like something new, and this is came to me like really in 1 second. Why can't we just do this? Because we had like about 20 different loudspeakers and we didn't go very loud, which is really interesting, and giving people feeling that they're able to explore it. and
Mm.
and we like wanted, I never thought about the organism actually, but it used to be like this, like a rainforest, like something that people can grab the parabolic mic and explore it as a real world, and this is like a world inside the another world. It's really interesting.
That makes sense. That's so fun. So, when you were planning for the actual site itself, how did you how did your conversations with John think about the place itself? Like, obviously, you have to work with the environment and sort of place as a collaborator, like we talked about. How did that translate to this installation for you?
I think that this place, I mean, it's important to mention that Holden Chapel is the third oldest building at Harvard, which is really old one, and it has a lot of history. It used to be a real chapel. Then it was a part of Harvard Medical School, and because of autopsies that happened here, and I don't know how it was organized back then, but as I know, there's the fact that there are a lot of bodies. I mean, nowadays it's bones somewhere underground in the basement. I mean, it's really strange because the place really great vibe. This is you feel like you uh, get into this piece of the history, and to me it's really inspiring. To me it's really new experience, I would say, because yeah, it's emotionally it feels really great. And now it's a part of Harvard music department, and they have classes here, and I had my artist talk at Holden Chapel as well, and it inspired me because I knew all these details before I came here, and that was a different approach, you know, and it was different to LA Feel, for example, and emotionally it felt really different to LA Feel, but it was like a big part of the whole journey we took with John, I would say, because we discussed it.
Did that history change how you thought about how sound could work in that environment?
It changed to me the way people perceive it, people understand it. Because when I created the installation, I thought it will work like this, like the one way. When I heard people on BBC show, I was really surprised And when I talked to people at Holden Chapel during the installation, it all also was something very great. And to have this feedback from the visitors, it's a crucial part, because now I know on what things I will focus on when I go to my next project, and maybe some things I will get rid of, or like some things that I would love to extend for the next project. It's really important, because um, it's not about technical things. It's about feeling yourself in the middle of the place where installation is happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what comes next after this installation for you. I would love to ask you, what is exciting for you at this moment? What are you thinking of maybe exploring with or experimenting a little more with after all of this has happened?
Yeah, first of all, I'm really happy that that happened. Now I feel that I have, honestly, I used to think that I will have a lot of time, and now I have some ongoing collaborations, and I have to focus on them, on these things, to finish them, to complete, do my best to do so. Because I really want to have like a, I would say, break or something, just to focus on new ideas. I'm really excited, because I think that the thing that I shared about the birds and the nature, I feel that I have to go that direction deeply, and maybe working with scientists, and maybe to create some more like serious layer, and maybe more like a science based layer, something more like, not just to, it's not just about uh like entertaining thing, but not, I don't like this word. It's about enjoyment or something like this. Yeah. And now I would love to experiment further, because I have like tons of ideas. Most of them are relates to technical stuff, and I really want to create my own album, because I work either in a very short format, which is Instagram, or sound installation, which are from 6 to 12 hours long. And now would really love to bring something as an audio piece. And we also have ideas with my wife Tata to like folk art installations. And I'm pretty excited, because there are a lot of ways I can go next. And I also produce pop music. It's really maybe something really unusual we're making with a good friend of mine, Roman Litvinov, which is also known as Mujus. He's a really great artist and singer, and we create an album together. It will be a pop album, and nothing about ambient or birds
Wow.
or. But I don't like to create boundaries for me, and I love making music. By the way, to me, there are no boundaries between any sort of music. Just it's about how it feels. And now, yeah, I think into the main thing I would really want to go deep into is explore the sounds of nature and travel. I would love to travel a lot throughout America, first of all, and maybe uh, uh, reach reach Rocky Mountains, or the north part of California and Oregon, and other different places, to make recordings, new recordings. Because what I'm using now, like, is something that I used a lot already, and maybe try to find new ways to represent it.
That's very exciting. I think you should add Florida to your list of places to go. The biodiversity is just incredible.
I've been to Florida, but unfortunately, it was only Miami. My wife and I, we took the whole way through the U.S. from California to Florida. When we didn't leave here, it was like a road trip, crazy road trip from LA to Utah, into Utah to Texas, and east to through via I-10. Interstate 10 to Florida. And it was really, the thing why I'm talking about it, because I remember in Louisiana, I remember how we was in a traffic jam, and we opened the windows, and that was something really like I've never heard before. There's something like swamps, or something like really like a sort of frogs, some sort of insects. It was really like a different world. And yeah, and I would really love to go to Florida. And if you can recommend some places, some really interesting places, yeah, I would really love to go for recordings.
That sounds good. Yeah, I'm finding out where the cool places are right now. So once I find them, I'll send them to you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I feel like we've covered quite a bit. I want to ask if there's anything that you haven't been asked in your previous interviews that you would like to share about your experience, your career, what's important to you, anything.
Yeah, I got you. Um, it sounds like a peaceful, a different interview, I would say, because we can talk for hours. I mean, the thing that which is really important for me, that to continue experimenting, to create some sort of new realities, new things, and to combine and to be on that field. And this is something just as a message for everyone who watches our conversation, that the experimentation is like a core of what I'm doing. And this is that brought me to this state of thing, and to that gave me the chance to create this sound installations, to create this journey as an artist. And I always like to experiment, and this is like the main thing to me, maybe, and the main message, that you always have to try to create something new, rather than replacing something, or like emulating something that already exists.
I think, especially right now, I sense that a lot of creative people are looking for new ways to experiment and ways to break out of maybe like sort of a repetition that I think a lot of people have kind of gotten stuck in, or just feeling a little lack of inspiration. So that's a really important piece to share.
Yeah, thank you for this, because I think also, which is really huge part of my work, that I believe that the best tools, the best instruments, the best even software, are what we're able to build by ourselves. I mean, it could be tricky for the most artists to do it, but yeah, this is what I didn't share with BBC. This is that all of my work, like talking about my studio work, is based on working with my own software, which is tape manipulator. This is that tape manipulator. I built it like almost 4 or 5 years ago, and the idea was to create your own software that can emulate, not emulate. This is not about emulation. This is about extending the idea of splicing real magnetic tape, and to add extra thing that can't be done with real, I mean, just physical tape, I mean, magnetic tape in real world. And I spent like a year maybe to focus on the ideas, and what I would love to have, and uh, what I would love to use. And I created this piece of software to cover maybe next 5 or 10 years of my work, because it's something that is really really unique to me. Because regarding the market, we have mostly samplers or granulators, and tape manipulator is a different thing. For those who don't know what it is, it's something that extends the idea of working with tape. For example, like let's imagine the tape loop, and what I do with tape looping. What one of the techniques, I love randomly spliced tape loops. For example, I make recordings for like 30 seconds, one instrument, 30 seconds, the same instrument but a different part, or the like the field recording, or like, and then I combine them. I just cut the tape and splice in random order with random. I don't know which exact thing I cut at this moment, and I edit it randomly, like a blind editing. But it's physical, and it's a kind of thing where you can work and explore something new and get something new from this. And I really love making this sort of tapes, and it takes you like an hour or two to create. And which is what's impossible. It's impossible to change these splices during it plays. It's impossible to edit it. And what I did, I added these features because it's actually virtual. I didn't simulate the sound of tape. It's not about saturation. It's about the philosophy that lays behind these tools, analog tools. And I extended it because you are able to create your own loops, virtual tape loops, and you are able to overlap them. You're able to add some malfunction things for one sort of randomization. You can precisely adjust for each element of each splice, each piece of the tape. And it's really interesting. This is how I create my artificial bursts and how I program them. And yeah, and this is an example of, because it's also a different thing, but sometimes when people just scroll Instagram and see, or just maybe even some of my followers think that like I work purely analog, it's not like it half because this sound collages are analog, but they all are made from digital stuff, and that digital stuff work with field recordings or musical instruments or birds or etc. And this is a combination of digital and analog worlds together, and this is the thing that really changed my way of working. And I really happy that this is like one of the key things that brought me the place where I am now. Yeah. Thank you for this question.
Of course. Yeah, that makes sense to me that you would kind of use both digital and analog because, as you said earlier, you don't want to limit yourself also. And as an artist, you have this wide variety of tools to use. When you do use analog, does that change how you understand the work that you're doing or relate to it?
Yeah, it definitely does, because it's, first of all, working with tape. Tape is a very tactile thing. You can feel the tape just touching it, just like through your fingers, through how it looks like, the way it looks like, through that feeling. It means a lot to me, using tape, for example, or using small dictaphones. I mean, just small tape recorders. It's also an analog thing. And I add it because the digital world is amazing. The digital tools are great. There are no boundaries. And here, in terms of creating new tools, but analog could even limit you, and that limitation is a great point to explore something deeper, maybe not wider but deeper, because working with Nagra reel-to-reel recorder, it's like you can explore one thing and then you can deep dive into the world of tape and looking how it can be done differently, and what can I use, what tapes you're able to use, because there are a lot of different types of tape, different types of like tape looping techniques. You can create tape loops from different types of tape, different kinds of tape. For example, broadcast tape and master tape and some vintage tape. You can supply them together, making that tape loop, and even that's a really different universe of making sounds, or regarding dictaphones, it adds because all of my artificial birds are, or even birds are recorded, could be played through digital stuff, or could be played from like in into your Ableton or other digital working audio station. But here, this place changes everything because, first of all, this is each of the dictaphones has its own, like I would say, issues. Sometimes have more flutter effect.
Mm.
Sometimes some of them sounds clean, but they all add color and then individually change the sound. If you play one bird from this piece of gear, it will sound one way. If you use the same model, but that particular gear was used more extensively, has more like malfunction thing, and that will change the color differently. And of course, when they work with a space, rather with like Holden Chapel or the Walt Disney Concert Hall, or I can place dictaphones just somewhere in the mountains, just make recordings at my studio, making Instagram videos, for example. It all changes everything because to me it's important to take all of the things I'm doing from digital to analog, because um it's a like a game changer here, because it will sound much more boring than what I'm doing with analog things. And like even placing the mic, like you can place, like even if you work with stereo, like it could, I mean, like, because what I'm doing, I'm capturing the space with like 2 or 4 mics, and the placing of mic is crucial. It's crucial because it's like you create the real collage. You can like operate, you can control each of the sounds, volume of each dictaphone. It all plays a huge role in my process. Yeah, this is all about analog.
That that makes sense too. I think it's very almost like inviting to translate from digital to analog, because it allows for, if you are doing sound installations or even your videos,
Yeah.
sort of for each person to have a different relationship to your work in general. So that's cool. Even just from a like more of a artist philosophy process, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, really, really happy to hear that. Thank you for getting this, in a really right way. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing your story with me.
Thank you so much, Kylie, for having me. Thank you for this conversation. I hope someone will find it interesting. It was really a big pleasure to talk to you and to explore some details and to share some details with you. And thank you for these great questions. Yeah, I'm pretty excited.
I'm very glad. You did it. Thank you for listening to this episode of Sight and Sound, a Living Atlas with Alexey Seliverstov and Kylie Stokes. It was a wonderful episode. I hope you learned something interesting. And if you would love to collaborate or contribute to the project, please let me know. Feel free to reach out to me. I am looking for collaborators. I'm looking for people to interview, specifically sound artists. You know, there are different ways that we can collaborate. I'm also taking submissions for the Sonic Dives page. If you're interested in that, more information will be coming out very soon about that. So stay tuned. Follow the Instagram Sight and Sound, site dot and dot sound. And yeah, stay tuned, subscribe. Let me know if you have feedback. And I'll see you next time.